I'm here with Chuck Gomes, the chair of the GNSO PDP Working Group on the Next Generation Registration Directory Service to replace WHOIS. So, Chuck, can you provide us a little background of this PDP?
Well, this PDP has lots of history behind it. Most of ICANN's history has involved some working groups or efforts with regard to WHOIS, which we're now referring to as Registration Data Services. And it's been a frustrating area because there are very diverse interests with regard to WHOIS and registration data. It's not as if we're starting from scratch. A lot of work has gone into this over the years, with not a lot of success because of the divergent positions that different groups within the community have. And all of those groups have good, valid positions. So finding some common ground is a challenge. Fortunately, in this particular case, the ICANN board initiated the expert working group that did a lot of great work. Now, the expert working group was not a policy development body like the GNSO is, and they specifically were not tasked with developing policy. But they did a lot of great work, and a lot of just really sharp people provided a lot of information that this working group can use along with the other work that many people over the years have done. So we didn't really start from zero, but we started from a very tough issue.
Indeed. And we heard that the working group has reached rough consensus on 26 initial points related to the users, access, the purpose, and data elements in the context of the thing data. So yesterday we had a cross-community discussion on this topic. How did the wider ICANN community react to these key concepts?
Well, I think it depends on who you're talking about. Those who have a lot of history on this issue probably had a very different reaction than some of the newer people to it. Some of the feedback I've received is some of the newer people, it was very informative for them, and they had no idea the level of complexity of the issues we're dealing with or the different nuances that come into play, and I think that session illustrated that for them. For some of the old-timers or the people who work with WHOIS and registration directory data every day, probably wasn't as enlightening for them, but they certainly had opportunity to contribute.
So in general, do you think the cross-community discussion was helpful in furthering the PDP?
From the PDP point of view, yes, I do. I think as a working group, we received some good feedback. For example, you mentioned the 26 key concepts that we've reached tentative agreement on. What we found in the working group on the majority of those, the sense we got from the room was pretty much the same level of support and objection that we received in the working group. There was one item in particular, maybe two, where there was a little bit different sense, and that was helpful. So that'll help guide us as we continue our work.
And I know the working group going to meet on Wednesday for a 3-hour working session. What do you aim to accomplish?
Well, one of the things, since we've been talking about the cross-community session yesterday, is we will do a brief follow-up on that and let the people know how we're going to use that information and move forward. But what we're really hoping to do as a main objective in the working group meeting this week is to start deliberating on a new area of registration data, for the last several months, we've been focusing on what used to be referred to as thin data, and some people still use that term. We're using a term different than that now. We're hoping tomorrow to start actually going beyond that into some of the what we often call as thick data, some contact information. And so we're kind of excited about that, because a lot of people within the working group, a lot of our members, have been wanting us to get beyond the thin data into the thick data, and that's our main objective tomorrow.
Great. And also, you may know about the RDS review. Do you think this review will have any impact on this ongoing PDP work?
It could. One of the tasks that they have, as I understand it, is to take a look at what we're doing and see if they can make some recommendations to how we could be more efficient. We certainly welcome that.
Definitely. So the last question is, looking beyond Johannesburg, what do you think will be the next for this PDP?
Well, our goal by ICANN60 is to be ready to start working on our first initial report. And that's aggressive, but I think that we have a shot at being ready to do that, and we'd really like to do that, because it would be excellent to show that progress.
That's great. We're looking forward to seeing the progress, and thank you very much, Chuck. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
You're welcome.